Good morning and welcome to another edition of Roadhouse Live. We are live. Today is October 31. I think that means it's Halloween 2023. What do you think about the Halloween, Benda?
You know, Halloween's kind of a weird one for me because it, like, my birthday's at the end of October, and it's like rolls from my birthday right into Halloween. And I don't know about you, but uh, I was always I was always getting into shit when I was a kid on Halloween. We were always doing things that we shouldn't be doing. Now, times have changed a little bit, so my kids are a little more innocent. Uh, I mean, my son is 15 and a half and still wants to hang out with us on Halloween. Uh, so we just kind of, there's a neighborhood that's not too far away that we go to where they give out jello shots and stuff. It's a lot of fun, but it's him and his friends and my daughter and her friends, but we're all just kind of hanging out together. It's a lot different than I had a little bit different childhood, but running the neighborhood, free roam all hours of the night. That was the time to get in trouble.
Yeah, I think I was pretty much the same way. It's like trouble was, it's like that's such a broad term. I don't know that I got in a lot of trouble other than just trying to find beer. that was
Right.
that was pretty much the
Right.
extent of it. It's like vandalism, not my thing. You know, that kind of not my thing. But if I could get my hand on beer or anything that even looked like alcohol, I was, I thought that I was living on the edge. Um, Different times as far as running the neighborhood. Yeah, no, that's what you did.
Yeah.
It's like but I think times are a little bit different. I think what do they go to like virtual hangouts now and like
Some probably do. Like I said, we have this neighborhood that, I mean, there's like 4 or 5 streets involved that they it's a party.
it is
It's
a
a good
party?
time. I mean, full on like haunted house, and like I said, there's probably 5 or 6 different houses that give out, whether it's like hot toddy drinks or Jello shots or whatever.
Hmm.
Last year, one of them was sponsored by Tito's.
Oh wow,
Um,
somebody
yeah,
works for a distributor. Uh,
yeah, it's, it's a good time though. Good
Somebody.
time.
All right, so we have the Halloweens. We had some data come out this morning. It appears that employees are still able to get a decent wage, which was very traumatic for the market. Very traumatic. Had to do red candles because wages are might actually.
Well, that cuts into corporate profit. So
Yeah, and it's like wages are starting to at least see any chance that wages get in line with inflation. It's just like, oh no, we can't have that. We have to have the people down. We have to flush them into the toilet. Waterboard, waterboard, waterboard. It's always been that way. It's like it cuts into margin. Like you're saying. It's like it just is what it is. It's like it's funny though. It's like even with this thing, the labor dispute being settled with the automakers, that kind of stuff. It's like they're talking about a 10% increase in pay over like what, 10 years, 5 years or 4 years, something like that. That's
yeah,
not that.
I didn't see the numbers, but
That's not
that
that
doesn't
much.
sound like, yeah, it doesn't
It's like,
sound like a
yeah, I,
lot.
I remember in college it being like, oh, you should at a bare minimum expect 2 to 3% increases annually. That should be your baseline, pay increase. That should be what it is.
Yeah.
Wait, I just don't understand. I don't get where we are in this world to where it's just like, no, the only that has to be such a zero sum game that, you don't pay people what they're worth. And if you believe in a free market, well, if an employee can get a signing bonus, if employee can get this, that's creating a market, that's creating um, something tangible there that a business gets to decide whether or not they want to pay the freight. Isn't that what it's all about? A transaction? not in indentured servitude to where it would appear that that's what the market and the Fed really would like to see happen. It's funny how a free market is okay for everybody except for the people. People can't do
Right.
it, not allowed to participate. So that was our data this morning. Kind of sets up the overall theme for the Fed tomorrow. Data continues to work in the right direction. I'll double down on what I said yesterday. I think they're done raising rates. I think it's over with, like over. Um, I think the market has a chance to rally as long as other data, stays sound. We don't get massive upticks in unemployment, because I think that's where the next battle will wage if we start chipping into corporate profits. I think the only thing that's positive with that, Bender, is the fact that I think a lot of these companies learned that they could slim down and are running pretty slim down ships at this point. I don't think there's a lot of fat left, which I think is a positive. So we have that. AMD reports this evening, which I think is going to be pretty big for that sector. Intel reported and didn't screw up, so it's AMD's turn to report and not screw up. We'll see how that plays out. But everything, again, is setting the table for tomorrow, the Super Bowl, if you will, and then Thursday for the Apple. I'm assuming that nothing grand came from the Apple event last night, considering that it's not green this morning.
Is it ever like after
make that
one of their events?
Yeah.
Isn't that typically a sell the news event?
It is, but here's what's interesting to me. When I woke up this morning and I was kind of scrolling through everything, and we were up a little bit, right about actually where we are now, at least on the ES. We were right in this little zone, and this is what I found to be the most interesting on the day for me, was the fact that Apple was red, Tesla's red, Nvidia red, Baba red, you can go down the list as far as, Adobe was red, but it's pushed back green. Amazon red, Micron was red, pushed back basically flat to green. Netflix was red, it's kind of pushed back to flat. That what was interesting to me, because the market was green. Microsoft was red, now it's nicely green. That's what was interesting to me, how the NASDAQ was, pretty decent shape. But all the mega cap was, for the most part, was red, which told me in that moment of time that there was something more broad going on under the surface as far as stability within the market, stability within tech specifically. So that was one of the things that I found very interesting this morning. Now, do they sell those off? This underlying, massive amount, or do they now catch up mega cap and pop it? As far as what our day will be, there are some areas that I'm looking at specifically, that are, I believe, are of importance. If you're looking at SPY, I would say 418 is a pretty big number. It's about 20 handles up from here. If you're watching the ES, 418, pretty important area, in my opinion, because I believe that's the 8 on the daily, that we haven't been near in a minute. So getting up there, we would touch the 8. Yeah, it's very rare that we actually take the 8 the first time, the first spin on the merry-go-round. When we do fall underneath. So that 418 level is an area that I'm watching pretty closely. Overall, we've had a nice, I would say, subdued bounce. Flow is still, for the most part, bearish, which means that it is a sneeze and sniff away from a short squeeze, which could indeed happen tomorrow with the federales. Could. Just depending on what that messaging is and how it comes out the other side. I would be surprised, Bender, if we do not have some type of legitimate covering rally today. I would be shocked if whatever dip that they give us, that is an opportunity to ride back to the upside, going into tomorrow. Might be in the afternoon, might be right out of the gate. Not real sure, but that's kind of where my mind is sitting, that covering rally is going to be important, because we've talked about this before, the concept of risk off into major events. Right now, risk off would mean covering your shorts and actually taking a couple of long positions.
Sure.
That's what risk off means in this environment, because that's where the momentum has been. That's where the money has been flowing. If you look at the chart, there's nothing upside about this chart, other than the fact that we may or may not have put in a bottom, which we may or may not have thought a couple of weeks ago that we had put in a bottom, and we did not.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I think risk off at this point is more covering based, more taking some upside shots, going into the federales tomorrow. You never know what overnight is going to bring. You never know what a headline is going to bring. You never know any of those things. But based on where the market is now, if we do get some legitimate dips, I'm going to have to be looking to go back the other way pretty quickly. So that's kind of where my head is at. Why don't you walk us through some of these little levels and numbers and suches and whatnots, and we can see if we have any type of a consensus building out.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with the daily here. You can see these lows that were down here, 36.64, up to the high that we put in. What was that? Back in July. 50% retracement of that move, 41.73.5. And you can see that we dipped down into value just under that 50% retracement, sweeping those lows from the end of April, early May, which we talked about, and have now bounced back above. So I think this, that 41.70 area is pretty important as far as kind of setting the stage for the next move. If we find ourselves back down below that and that acts as resistance, we could come down and take that 41.24.75 and potentially quite a bit lower. Mainly, I say that because we filled that fair value gap on the daily. That was kind of the last one that was left open, right? So we've come down, we've filled it, we've now reclaimed that midpoint and kind of waiting to see what we do with it from there. Looking at the previous move down and bounce, right? It bounced up into a fair value gap on the daily, filled it, and then made that next leg lower. So if that is to repeat, then we could see this move up to this 42.40.75 area. And that would be a spot that I would certainly have my head on a swivel, given that that was previous support, bounce, came down, little bounce here, left fair value gap behind. So previous support into now it would be the top of a daily fair value gap. We still have this volume imbalance right in here on the daily, up to 42.09.5. If it can get above that and kind of establish a base in here, we could see it fill in this daily candle pretty quick, and that would give you another 20, 30, 40, 30, something like that up from there. Zooming in, let's go to a 60-minute. We know that green line, that's the midpoint there that we were talking about. So looking at a 60-minute, kind of the same story as far as the fair value gaps go, right? We had this move up, pull back down, and actually this looks on a 15-minute, you can see we came right down to the bottom of that 15-minute fair value gap. We filled that candle in, and that's where the bounce came in. And I bring that up because you can see this area right down in here that left some stuff behind. Kind of something like that. You can see this low, this little pullback and bounce that came in at that was 5 o'clock this morning. That is at 4184.25. So if we get a move down into here, this is where I would be looking for that Hell's your possible dip buy area. This would be kind of that first zone. As always, I would wait for that market structure shift, preferably something longer than a 5 second or whatever it is you're looking at these days. But
it just depends on the moment. It's like, let's not go knocking the 15-second market structure shift. Let's not knock this because it starts somewhere. It all has to start somewhere. In order to have a 1 hour market structure shift, you must have it on the 15-second first. That's just math. It's just math.
Just math. So this would be that area that I would be looking for that sort of reaction to see if you get it. It gets tricky sometimes, not sometimes, it gets tricky all the time. When you're trading into these areas, if you don't wait for that market structure shift, because it may come down into this down close candle right here. It can come all the way down in and wick into this before deciding to turn around and go the other way, right? Sometimes you get those wicks through. As long as the candle body stays above, then it's okay, but it can wick all the way down into here. And you have to know that you also have this area down here. If it wants to, it can come, it does anything it wants to do. But this in here, or a break of this support, that's where I would kind of be looking for that reaction, see what it does. Ideally, we would come down and fill this in early and give us an opportunity. As far as continued downside, right? If you don't get that reaction in this 4184 level, and into this fair value gap, you can look for it down here, 4174.25. See if you get that reaction there. But if it keeps pushing down, if it looks like the objective after taking out, and not by a lot, right, but taking out yesterday's high, okay, so it took that out. Now on the 15-minute, we can see we're trading up into this candle. Let's look at a 5-minute real quick. Yeah, so we've got this, right up in here on the 5-minute after taking out these highs. If you're looking to get short, a probe right up into this, that might be your opportunity. Otherwise, look for that pop over 4,200 and see if you get a, if it's a peak above and then pulls back down below and leaves that fair value gap behind that you can short into. That could be an opportunity. Targeting 4184.25 and then 4174.25. But I think, I think the midpoint, this 4174 area, I think this is kind of key. It's pretty important, as we talked about. This fair value gap here that traded down into and filled, I think the top side of this area, if we do get a pullback, I think it's pretty important that this area in here holds. Because if we find ourselves back below this and this becomes resistance and we push lower from there, well, if we're looking at a 15-minute, this area in here becomes resistance and we push below 4166.75, then we're looking back down here, that 4156 level, and potentially eyeing this gap. and that would kind of look like it's turned back around on the 15-minute to head lower. Now this right here doesn't look bad as far as a possible bottom, right? But we need this area to hold. You can see how this is set up, and if this does, potentially come back down into that 4180 area and then make another move higher. If you get that turnaround, that market structure shift, if it does probe down into here, and then you get that, what looks to be setting up for that next leg higher, it's probably going to come take this out. It's about the only thing left, right? And that 4204.75 that I have marked, the reason I have that marked, if we go back to that 60-minute, you can see this area that was support in here and then became resistance, right? So what we want to see, what bulls want to see, is establishing support over that level, not just come fill this gap and then back down. We want to see support and willing buyers over 4,200. And if we get that, this stuff can fill in pretty quickly, right? If we hold above 4,200, we can see 4264.75 pretty quick. We can see 4291.25 pretty quick. So that's kind of how we're set up. That's kind of the game plan for me coming into the day. See what we do with 4184.25. If we get above 4199.75, I want to see us establish support over that 4200. Again, looking for that reaction. Do we just wick above and pull back down, or do we get that candle through that leaves something behind that we can trade into? And the opposite for this 4184.25. So that's it. That's what I got.
So is there a scenario that you see where we come down and fill out that gap that's there?
The one down here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, certainly.
That from overnight, Sunday.
Oh, no, this gap.
I don't know what time that is. Is that Sunday into Monday right
29.
there?
Yeah.
That we kind of tickled into a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if it decides, it would be. And if it decides, if like you said, everything that's on the docket, depending on how the market receives it, if it decides more pain is what is required, certainly.
Flow is bearish, man. There's no getting around it. There are some bull lines, but flow is bearish. All right, Bender, thank you very much. Stonks, how are you?
I am doing well.
Do we not have Sonny? Is he off?
I don't know. I guess not.
Well, I guess you'll have to do, Stonks. What you got, bud?
I guess it's just me. Sorry. Let's see. Let's go through. We can go through the news. Let's check out what we've got going on. Chinese factory data disappoints. Pfizer missed. Cat reported well, but they didn't buy it. Let's see. And then Pinterest is good times. They're up 16%. And Nvidia has put out a report that they may have to cancel $5 billion worth of orders on chips going to China. Let's see, upgrades, downgrades. We've got Monster downgrade, Wayfair downgrade, On Semiconductor downgrade, SoFi downgrade, Apple downgrade, Baba downgrade. There's a lot of downgrade. And I think, and then McDonald's price target raised. And then a bunch of upgrades on pins. I like the pins. And I think that's kind of it over here. So we can jump into some charts. We had a smash day set up to the upside, which did break due to Larry Williams' ability to potentially do what everyone else could make them go bankrupt. I have an alert set if we were to break yesterday's low. Technically, Larry's stop would be down here, but we're going to get an alert on the SPY and the Qs if we break yesterday's low. So it's kind of where the smash days were. It was an upside setup yesterday, so we'll see if we keep going. And we jump over to the NASDAQ with all the markup and everything. Let's see. So we've got, pretty similar kind of to what Bender had walked through. We've got new week gap below. Got this trend line here that's this massive flag that we've been talking about on the daily, trying to see if we can get back up into that. That's this trend line here. But the other thing that I'm kind of trying to keep an eye on here is if it was going to turn this into just a bigger bear flag here on the NASDAQ. It was a little bit of a different look, at least to my eye, on the ES. Had a little bit more of an inverse head and shoulders look than this NASDAQ flag. Yellow boxes are daily fair value gap, so we ran this one, and then we have this big one above that we kind of were rejecting near the bottom. But if we jump back over to the ES, it's kind of got this like left shoulder head, right shoulder look. I mean, maybe you could probably still throw those trend lines on there, but and they're usually running together, but we'll see what we get. So yeah, for upside, if we can get cooking, I'll be looking see if we can run and refill this gap. Downside, we've got kind of similar new week opening gap below, and then this pink box down here is a volume imbalance. The other thing that's notable is now it looks like you can see there's a ton of stops built up right here, kind of towards the top of this new week opening gap. So I might maybe throw a line there to see if we, kind of similar to what Bender was saying above, if we, we want to pop, build support. Same thing if it's like if we had to, are we just stopping out bulls to go higher, or are we going to break down right there? So we'll see what we get on the NASDAQ below. Jump over to the Russell. Let's see. So Russell's got kind of these equal lows below as well. This was a double bottom that I've got marked up there, just in case if we give out and start to push back down. We've been looking at this level on the daily for a while, that 1647, a lot of activity there. Good sign that we held above. And then I believe this blue box here is going to be this 4-hour gap. So we kind of filled it in, and pushing back now, it's kind of working as resistance. We kind of got like a longer term, maybe this double bottom, triple bottom over here, see if we can get cooking to the upside out of that. But going to really need to see things flow and some things change. Small caps really just getting beaten down over there. But it is kind of now starting to build out this big, falling channel that it's been set up in. So, and we're kind of running out of liquidity below. So, I think when we really start to see a reversal, this is going to be a good trade to the upside. And that, that kind of showed on those days last week where we were getting a little bit squeezy to the upside. We caught a really nice move to the upside on the Russell just because it's one of the most beaten down. So we'll see what we get. For individual tickers, I'm going to keep an eye today on Coin. That was a daily inside bar. We've got some key levels right here in this area. Below, I'm going to be watching this 72.65, a lot of reactions below, and got this 74.60 above, a lot of candle bodies reacting to this area. Below, we bounce off this dark pool 70.52. Coin doesn't get a ton of dark pool, so it's important to kind of keep an eye on those on your chart. Above, we'll be looking to see what we do with that 77.79. That was a big one from last week on Coin. So we'll see. And then, it's reacting to all these Bitcoin ETF headlines that keep kind of recirculating. So we'll see if we get any of that going again. The other one I was going to keep an eye on today was Meta. So Meta, the big dark pool is kind of hard to see. This 20% is going to be this 300.83, which, not too far off from a round number psych level. And you can see there's just a ton of candle bodies that react to this 300 area. Above, I'm going to be looking at this 305.2. It's got like support becomes resistance kind of thing going on. So going to keep an eye on that. And otherwise, I'll be, kind of we've been tracking the commodities, gold and crude. I'll kind of be calling those out in the room. And I think that's all I got.
All right, very good. Just to reiterate from yesterday, we're just setting the table for the Super Bowl. Tomorrow, Fed. Thursday, Apple. That's what we got. Let's see what shifts we get in flow today. Try to be patient. Well, let's also try to be aggressive and find areas to actually be aggressive with. I think it can yield some pretty good reward. That's all I got, fellas. How about you guys?
That's it for me.
Good for me.
All right. We have about 8 minutes until open. 8 minutes until open. We'll see you soon.
Right. All right.